Hi, viewers. Welcome to today's story. This is a dramatic and emotional journey filled with unexpected turns, tense business deals, and meaningful personal encounters. Sit back, relax, and let's begin part one of this story. It was a cloudy morning. The factory yard was quiet, but the air was heavy with worry. A man who had the look of a stressed businessman was pacing back and forth near the gate. His face was full of concern. He stopped and looked at the factory building. "The situation at this sugar factory is getting worse," he muttered to himself. "It's been a whole week, and no new sugar has arrived. What am I supposed to do now?" He sighed deeply, feeling the pressure build in his chest. "I've run out of options," he thought. "I need to do something." Just then, he entered the area where workers usually gather. As he walked in, he noticed someone approaching him. A stranger, but someone who looked calm and polite. "Hello," said the stranger. "Are you the owner of this place?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes, I am. My name is James. I'm the owner of this sugar processing business. Things have been tough lately. I'm trying to buy a new shipment of sugar, but I can't find any reliable suppliers. The factories that usually send sugar have stopped delivering. I think I need to go out myself and look for a new source." The stranger looked thoughtful and replied, "I see. Well, I happen to have access to a sugar source. If you're looking to purchase, I might be able to help." James's eyes lit up for the first time in days. "Really? That could be a huge help." They started to talk more in detail. "What kind of sugar do you use?" the stranger asked. "I use cane sugar and sometimes jaggery," James replied. "I managed to buy some sugar recently, but that supplier stopped working with me. They broke our agreement. Now I'm completely stuck." "How much sugar do you need?" the stranger asked. James scratched his head and said, "About 50 tons. "Yes, at least 50 tons. The demand is rising and I can't keep up." The stranger nodded. 50 tons is quite a lot. "Where are you located exactly?" "My business is near the edge of town," James explained. "Not too far, but still difficult to get supplies when the roads are bad." The stranger smiled and said, "My name is Kim. Nice to meet you." James shook his hand and said, "Nice to meet you too." "Wait, did you say Kim? That name sounds familiar. Have you been in this industry long?" "Yes," said Kim. "I've been working in the sugar trade for many years now. Recently, some deals I had with Thailand fell apart. They stopped accepting my shipments, and just like you, I'm looking for new buyers. It's been tough, especially with the heavy rains lately. The roads are a mess, and it's very hard to transport anything." James felt a sense of connection. "Yes, I know exactly what you mean. We're all facing the same storm. Let's work together." As they talked more, the conversation moved from cautious introductions to serious business. James asked questions about quality, shipping times, and pricing. Kim was transparent. "My sugar comes from acacia trees. It's high quality," he said. "I sell it for around 1.1 million VND per ton. For the more refined sugar, the price is about 2.5 million VND per ton." "That sounds fair," James said. "If the quality is good, I'll take it." Kim said, "We can check the sugar tomorrow. I'll take you to my supplier. We'll test it, and if everything matches your standards, we'll seal the deal." James agreed, but he wanted to be sure. "Let's do it this way," he said. "Give me your phone number so I can call you tomorrow. Then we'll go together." Kim smiled. "No problem." He gave James his contact. Before they parted ways, James introduced himself again. "My name is James. I run the sugar factory and a few other businesses here." "And my name is Nguyen," the other man replied. "Let's meet tomorrow and see how it goes." They both left the area feeling a bit more hopeful. For James, this was the first time in weeks that things didn't feel hopeless. There was still a long way to go, but at least now he had a possible path forward. James looked up at the gray sky, watching as the clouds began to part slightly, revealing a bit of sunshine. Maybe, he thought, this is the beginning of something better. He had no idea that this meeting would be the start of a long, emotional journey, one filled with challenges, secrets, and choices that would change his life forever. But for now, it was just a handshake and a chance. The next morning, the sun had barely risen when James got out of bed. He hadn't slept well. His mind had been full of thoughts, doubts, questions, and hope. Could Wong really help him? Was this finally the solution he needed? He got dressed quickly and stepped outside. The morning air was cool and smelled of wet soil and trees. Rain had fallen in the night, and puddles covered the ground. But today, James didn't mind. He was on a mission. He called Wong. "Hello," came the voice on the other end. "Good morning. It's James," he said. "Are we still going to the supplier today?" "Yes," Wong replied. "I'm ready. I'll meet you at the crossroad near the old train station." "I'll be there," James said. About an hour later, James arrived at the meeting spot. He saw Wong waiting beside a small truck. The truck wasn't fancy. In fact, it looked quite old, but it was packed with some sacks and covered by a plastic sheet to protect against the rain. "You're right on time," said Wong with a smile. "I never take chances when it comes to my business," James replied. They climbed into the truck and began the journey. The road was rough, full of bumps and holes, made worse by the recent rains. They drove past empty fields, muddy paths, and sleepy villages. As they drove, they talked. "You said the sugar comes from acacia trees?" James asked. "Yes," Wong replied. "It's jaggery made from wild sugar trees in a remote village. They make it the old-fashioned way, no machines, just hands and fire and patience." James was curious. "Is it clean? Is it safe?" "It's as pure as nature," Wong answered. "No chemicals, just boiled sap. It's not as shiny as factory sugar, but the taste is rich, deep, and healthy. Some of my buyers say it reminds them of their childhood." James smiled faintly. "Sounds special, but will it work in large-scale production?" "That's why we're going to check," Wong replied calmly. "You'll see for yourself." After 2 hours of slow driving, they arrived at a small village hidden between green hills. Chickens ran across the road. Children played in the muddy fields. Smoke rose from cooking fires. It felt like a different world, quiet, untouched by the rush of the city. They parked near a wooden hut. An old man came out, wiping his hands on a cloth. "This is Mr. Lon," Wong said. "He runs the sugar boiling workshop here." James shook the old man's hand. "It's a pleasure." Mr. Lon smiled. His teeth were yellowed, but his eyes were kind. "Come, let me show you." They followed him to a small outdoor workshop. There, several pots were boiling over wood fires. A sweet, earthy smell filled the air. 2 women were stirring the pots with long wooden sticks, slowly thickening the sugar sap. Beside the fire, rows of golden brown jaggery blocks were laid out to cool. James picked one up and smelled it. Then he broke off a piece and tasted it. It was sweet, yes, but not like regular sugar. It was deeper, warmer, like honey and caramel mixed with sunlight. "This is very good," he said. "We make it with care," said Mr. Lon proudly. "But we can only produce about 20 to 30 tons a month. It's slow work." James nodded. "I understand. I'll take a few samples to test back at my factory. If it works, we'll talk numbers." Mr. Lon agreed. "We're happy to have new business. This village depends on this sugar." As they walked back to the truck, James turned to Wong. "Thank you for bringing me here. This might really save my business." Wong shrugged humbly. "I believe in helping those who work hard. You look like a man who doesn't give up." James laughed softly. "You have no idea." They got back into the truck and started the return journey. The road was still muddy and long, but somehow it didn't feel as hard. James looked out the window, watching the trees go by. After a while, he spoke. "You know, I never expected to find hope in a place like this." Wong smiled. "Sometimes, the best answers come from the most forgotten places." James looked over at him and nodded. "I'm glad I met you." Later that evening, back at his factory, James gathered his team. He showed them the samples and explained where they came from. "We'll run a test tomorrow," he said. "If this sugar works, we have a new direction." His workers were surprised and hopeful. They knew the business had been in trouble. This small piece of brown jaggery might be the lifeline they needed. That night, as James sat alone in his office, he held one of the sugar blocks in his hand. It was heavy, real, solid. "Maybe this is the start of something new," he whispered to himself. He looked out the window at the moonlight shining down on the empty yard. It was quiet, but no longer hopeless. The sun had not yet risen when James arrived at his factory. His mind was racing. He stood alone in the hallway, holding a small block of jaggery. It was heavier than it looked, not just in weight but in meaning. This small block of sugar held the future of his business, his workers' lives, and perhaps his own sanity. He remembered what Nwang had said. This sugar is made with fire and patience, just like you. Those words stayed with him. As the testing began, the factory filled with energy. Workers in white coats ran tests in the lab. Others began melting the jaggery into syrup. They checked its color, its texture, its ability to mix with other ingredients. James watched everything. Every drop, every stir, every result. At first, it looked promising. The sugar melted well. It blended with cocoa. The syrup was thick, smooth, with a rich flavor. Some workers even smiled when they tasted it. It's like molasses, but lighter. It reminds me of my grandma's cooking. Hope bloomed in James's chest like a sunrise after a long storm. Could this really work? But then things changed. One of the lead engineers approached James. "Sir, there's a problem," he said gently. James froze. "What kind of problem?" "The jaggery reacts differently in our machines. The consistency changes during cooling. It hardens too fast and the bars crack. If we don't adjust the temperature perfectly, it ruins the shape." James's heart sank. "Can we fix it?" "Maybe," the engineer said carefully. "But it will take time. And money. We'll need to reprogram the machines. Recalibrate everything." James looked away. Time. Money. Two things he didn't have much of. He stepped outside. The wind was blowing softly, but to James, it felt like a storm. He walked slowly across the empty yard, hands in his pockets, head down. He felt like he was falling again. Like every time he tried to rise, something pulled him back. He leaned against a wall and closed his eyes. His thoughts were loud, angry, scared. "Why can't anything go smoothly?" he whispered to the air. "Why must everything be a fight?" He remembered his wife's face. She had left 2 years ago, tired of his obsession with work. He remembered the laughter of his daughter before she moved away. And now the company, the last thing he had, was breaking too. Later that night, James sat alone in his office. The factory was dark and silent. Everyone had gone home, except him. On the desk was a half-eaten meal. Cold. Forgotten. Beside it, the jaggery block. Still solid. Still there. He picked it up again. Studied its surface. Rough, imperfect yet real. A voice echoed in his head. His father's voice from long ago. "Don't look for easy roads, son. Look for roads that teach you who you are." James wiped his face. He didn't even realize he had started crying. Not tears of weakness, but of truth. He realized something then. This wasn't just about sugar, or business, or profit. It was about becoming the kind of man who could stand through a storm, even when everything around him felt broken. The next morning, James gathered his team. "I've made a decision," he said. They looked at him, tired, worried. "We're going to adjust the machines," he said. "Yes, it will cost time and money, but this sugar is worth it. Not just for the flavor, but because it means something. To those villagers, to our future." Some workers were surprised. A few were doubtful, but many nodded slowly. "We believe in you, sir," one woman said. "We just need to know you believe in yourself." James looked at her. Her name was Lynn. She had worked at the factory for 12 years. He nodded. "I do. Starting today." In the days that followed, the factory changed. Not just in machines, but in spirit. People worked late. Not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. They adjusted the heating systems, reprogrammed cooling trays, built new molds for the sugar bars, and something beautiful happened. The new chocolate bars, made with jaggery, started to come out perfect. Golden brown, rich in flavor, unique in texture. James took one in his hand, broke it in half, and took a bite. And he smiled. "This," he whispered, "is ours." He called Nwang that evening. "It worked," James said. His voice shook slightly with emotion. There was silence on the other end. Then a warm laugh. "I told you," said Nwang. "Sometimes you just have to trust the path." James laughed too. "Would you like to join us next week?" he asked. "We're launching a new product line. I want people to know where this sugar comes from." "I'd be honored," Nwang said. At the product launch event, James stood on a stage in front of investors, journalists, and buyers. He held up the Jaggery chocolate bar and told the story of how a broken supply chain led him to a forgotten village, of how tradition and simplicity saved a company, of how failure led him to strength. People clapped. Some cried. Later, an old investor came to James and said, "I didn't just buy chocolate today. I bought your story." That night, James sat again in his office, but this time he wasn't alone. His daughter had come. She had heard about the launch and surprised him. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she said, hugging him tightly. "You didn't give up." James hugged her back, tears filling his eyes. "I almost did," he whispered. "But someone, reminded me that the fight is part of the journey." She smiled. "And you won." "No," he said gently. "I grew." The lights in the factory shined brighter now. The machines hummed like music. The workers smiled. And James? He stood in the middle of it all, proud but also tired. Not tired from work, no. He had energy now, a reason to wake up again. But his heart still carried old wounds. Silent ones. Deep ones. He looked at a photo on his office wall. It was of his wife, Diep, and their daughter, Hannah, when she was younger. James stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "I miss you, both of you." He touched the frame softly, as if hoping the glass would give him warmth. But the past doesn't answer back unless we go to it ourselves. That weekend, James did something unexpected. He called Diep. They hadn't spoken in a year. "Hello." Her voice was cautious. "Hi," James said. "It's me." Silence. Then, "I know. Why are you calling?" James took a deep breath. "Because I realized I never said sorry." "Sorry," she repeated. Her voice cracked a little. "Yes," he said. "For pushing you away. For choosing work over us. For not listening. For not being present when you needed me the most." Another silence, but not cold this time. A soft one, like the wind before rain. I didn't expect this," Diep said. "I thought you moved on." "I tried," James admitted. "But success doesn't heal the heart. Only love does. And I hurt the people who loved me most." Diep whispered, "Hannah still talks about you. She doesn't show it, but she misses you too." James closed his eyes. His throat tightened. "Can we meet?" Not for answers, just to talk. There was a pause. Then, "All right, tomorrow, at the old cafe." The next day, James arrived early. The cafe hadn't changed. Same wooden chairs. Same jasmine tea smell. He sat nervously. His hands trembled a little. Then he saw her, Diep. Still elegant. Still strong. But tired, too. They sat down. No words at first. Just soft glances. Shared silence. Then Diep said, "You look better. Healthier." James smiled faintly. "The factory is better. But I'm still learning how to be better, too." They talked for hours. Not just about the past, but about little things, the garden she planted, the neighbor she didn't like, the movies Hannah now loved. And for the first time in years, James laughed. A real laugh. Diep smiled. "I miss that sound." Later, as they walked outside, James stopped. "I don't expect things to go back," he said quietly. "But maybe we can move forward." Slowly, Diep looked up at him. Her eyes soft. "Let's start with healing," she said. "For us. For Hannah." James nodded. A week later, Hannah came to visit the factory again. She walked in slowly, looking around. "It feels different," she said. "Lighter." James knelt down and opened a drawer. Inside was a small chocolate bar, wrapped in a paper with her childhood drawing on it. "You drew this," he said. "When you were 7. Hannah laughed. "You kept it." "I kept everything," James said. "Even when I lost my way, you were always in my heart." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Me too, Dad. I just didn't know how to come back." They hugged, long tight, healing. As James reconnected with his family, something even more beautiful happened at the factory. A new woman was hired. Her name was Lean. She was smart, soft-spoken, and came from the same region where James had found the Jaggery. She knew the people, the culture, the land. But she also knew something else, what it meant to rebuild after pain. James and Lean began working closely. She helped design a new campaign, one that showed not just the chocolate, but the story behind it, the hands that made the sugar, the hearts behind the work. At first, it was just business, but slowly, a quiet friendship formed. One day, Lean and James stayed late to review packaging. They sat under the soft yellow factory lights, sipping tea. Lean looked at him. "You seem different lately." James smiled. "I feel different." She nodded. Sometimes healing doesn't look like a miracle. It looks like waking up without regret, smiling without pretending. James stared at her. "No one ever said it like that," he said. They sat in silence, but it wasn't empty. It was full of warmth, unspoken understanding. For the first time in a long time, James felt like he was home. Weeks passed. The new chocolate bars, now called Roots, were a success. They weren't just food. They were emotion. They were story. They were real. People everywhere wanted them, not just for taste, but for what they stood for. James was invited to give a talk at a major food summit. Investors, media, even global brands would be watching. Before the event, Diep sent him a message. "I'll be watching. So will Hannah. No matter what, we're proud of you." And Lean brought him a small box. Inside was a pin, a simple bronze leaf. "For your lapel," she said. "To remind you, your strength came from your roots." James was speechless. At the summit, James stood tall. He didn't just talk about chocolate. He talked about the village, about his failure, about his fear, about his family, and about how he was broken but never lost. The crowd rose in applause, and James knew the man who once nearly lost everything now stood in front of the world not as a CEO, but as a human who had grown. That night, back at the factory, James walked to the rooftop. He looked at the stars. The wind was gentle. Behind him, he heard footsteps. It was Lean. She stood beside him, silent, peaceful. "Thank you," James said. "For what?" she asked. "For helping me remember that the heart is a factory too. It breaks, it builds, but it also creates." Lean smiled, "Then promise me something." "What?" "Don't ever stop building. Not just chocolate, but love, connection, truth." "I promise," James whispered. And together, under the stars, they stood, two hearts that had known pain and were still open to joy. James sat in his office, alone, staring out at the rainy sky. The rain wasn't just outside, it was inside him. The business was slowly recovering, yes. His team was trying their best. But his soul, it was tired. He hadn't heard from Diep in days. She had disappeared again after their last conversation. That painful moment when she told him about the baby. Her eyes had been filled with fear and sadness. James wanted to believe her. But deep inside, doubt still clung to his heart. He closed his eyes and remembered her words. "James, I didn't hide it to hurt you. I just didn't know if you could carry one more weight." Those words haunted him. Meanwhile, Diep sat alone in a small clinic on the edge of the city. Her hands were shaking as she held the sonogram photo of the tiny life growing inside her. The nurse had just confirmed everything. She was over 10 weeks pregnant now. Her emotions were a storm: guilt, hope, fear, and deep love. She thought of James, of his eyes, of his silence, of the way he looked at her that last time, full of both love and confusion. "I shouldn't have left," she whispered to herself, "but I was scared he wouldn't forgive me." Then, the nurse returned and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You're healthy. So is the baby. But you look like your heart is heavy." Diep smiled sadly. "It is, but I have to fix things before it's too late." At the same time, Lean was dealing with her own storm. She sat in a quiet room, looking through old photos of James and herself, moments when she still believed they had a future. But now something was breaking inside her. She had always been proud, always in control. But now she was losing him, not just as a fiancé, but as a person. The man she once knew was slowly becoming someone else. And the worst part? She realized she might be the one who pushed him away. Her sister Hannah entered the room quietly. "You look tired." "I'm more than tired," Lean whispered. "I'm empty." Hannah hesitated. Then she sat beside her. "Do you want the truth?" Lean looked at her. "What truth?" "I think James loves Diep." The silence in the room was heavy. Lean didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, "I know." Back in James's home, he finally did something he hadn't done in a long time. He picked up his phone and called Diep. She didn't answer at first. His heart dropped, but then she called back. There was silence when he picked up. Then he whispered, "Diep?" Her voice cracked. "James, I'm sorry. Don't say sorry. I just want to see you." Tears fell from her eyes as she smiled softly. "Me too." They met in the small cafe where they had once shared laughter and dreams. Now, they sat across from each other, quiet, emotional. James reached for her hand. "I don't care about the past. I just want to know, do you still love me?" Diep didn't answer right away. She looked down, then back into his eyes. "I never stopped." James took a deep breath. "And the baby, can we start again, together?" Diep was crying now. "Yes, I want us to be a family. If you'll still have me." James stood up and gently hugged her. It was not a hug of passion, but one of forgiveness, promise, and beginning again. Far away, Hannah was writing in her journal. She had made a decision too. She would leave the city, find her own path, her own heart. And Lean? She walked into James's office the next morning and left a small envelope on his desk. No anger, no drama, just peace. Inside was a note. "James, I release you. Be happy." Lean. Did Diep make the right choice? Was James too forgiving? Or was it true love? And what do you think Lean is really feeling deep inside? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts, every emotion, every opinion. This story is for you. Let's share this journey together. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. They'll subscribe for part 6, coming very soon.